0 to 100 is a podcast dedicated to bringing you quality conversations and insights on resiliency in physical, mental, social, and spiritual fitness through engaging discussions with those in the military and beyond. Have you ever thought of being on an all-marine sports team? Now is a great time to check it out. Semperfit is now seeking applications for men's softball, men's and women's golf, men's and women's sevens rugby, and men's basketball. Application deadlines for several sports begin as early as May. Check out the description below for additional information and a link to the Mar Edmonds.
Hey, folks, welcome to the 0 to 100 podcast. I'm your host, Mark, with my co host, Steve. And today we have, as always, a special guest and with a unique background. We have Staff Sergeant Johnny Stefanowicz, who is maybe, I don't know if I've heard of others, but also an Olympian. And he is also currently training to join the next Olympics in wrestling. So without further ado, Johnny, thanks for making the time to join us today. We're excited to hear more about your story and just kind of how it's been for you. So just give us a brief idea of your life, right? Like, you're married, you got kids. Just give us kind of a basic biography, and then we'll start jumping into some more meaty details.
Yeah, Mark. All right. Well, thank you for having me. First off, it's a great opportunity. So I really do appreciate that. But a little about me in a brief synopsis. I was born in Baltimore, raised in Pennsylvania. Joined the Marine Corps in 2009, right out of high school. I wrestled my entire childhood and life, growing up throughout my grade school years, along with a couple other sports, just throughout when I could. Was pretty mediocre in sports, just like I was in school. So with that combination, it didn't lead for much further education or interscholastic opportunities, which just helped solidify my decision with joining the Marine Corps. I am now married. I've been in for a little over 12 years or so now. I'm stationed at Camp Lejeune. I've got a beautiful wife, two little boys now who are 7 and 4 that keep me on my feet. Sometimes knock me down.
Yeah.
It's depending on the day, I guess. I just graduated this past December from University of Maryland. So I was working on that degree for about 6 or 7 years. And that was my Christmas present to myself, was able to get that done. Currently, I'm in the intelligence community for the Marine Corps. I've worked that, and for the past 3 or 4 years or so now, my primary day-to-day has been with the All Marine Wrestling team. So I was the staff in CIC and first sergeant for the All Marine Wrestling team for the past 3 or so years, and just came off the team directly after the Olympic Games in Tokyo. After I made the team, and I'm currently waiting right now. We're in the middle of a move, so I'm stuck out in the bedroom instead of my office, just because I'm moving here in about 3 days. We're going to head north, and my new assignment will be as a senior combatives instructor at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and that's where I hopefully we'll have the opportunity there, work around schedules and obligations to continue to train for Paris 2024.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that background. I'm curious, kind of going back to the early years of your life. You mentioned, you weren't really into academics, and even in sports, you weren't thriving. And what was the Marine Corps like? How did it come into your life as the third option?
Well, I mean, it wasn't ever an option where I looked at it as a fallback plan. I was really small, to be honest, and that was kind of like my biggest setback. I started my senior year, I was still 16. So I was like really, really young and really small. I wrestled 103 pounds in high school.
Wow.
So the absolute smallest weight class. And for 2 of those years, I had to eat to make the minimum weight just to wrestle the lightest weight. So if you can take a little
like Captain
picture
America.
of what that looked like, so it wasn't ever a matter of choosing the Marines because I didn't have something else. It was when I met my recruiter, it was actually something that felt pretty natural. He didn't really have to sell me on the idea of what it took to be a Marine as much as it was this was an opportunity, and I felt it just felt right. It felt natural. And it was that one thing that instead of trying to push for these universities or, different career paths that I felt like was just being forced, it was something that just felt right, felt at home. And that was my decision. I think I met with him one time and kind of solidified it after we came to the
Cool.
house. And then that was it. That was done. I was sold and I haven't looked back. And, I've had other, career opportunities, but that's been, being a Marine is what I've loved to do. And it's always been natural. But I mean, I didn't like school. I didn't like school when I was young. I was small. Those other things I was trying really hard, and it just was very difficult to click. So that was definitely a variable of mine. I had a lot of difficulty balancing.
So sorry, let me ask you also, what made the click? What made the switch? So, you went from not really caring so much a whole about school, but now you've graduated from University of Maryland. So something had to switch where you're like, oh, okay, school, I can do this.
Yeah, let's see. It's a running joke. Friends and family both. Uh, Mostly my family until recent history, where they also knew that I could not stand school. I just didn't want to be in school. I couldn't stand education. It wasn't that I didn't want to learn. It was just some things came difficult. It's just the sitting classroom area came very difficult for me. Like a lot of people did, had that experience. And for me, it was just to the point of a breaking. It was a breaking point pretty much where I said, I don't want to do this anymore. You're telling me I can join the Marine Corps and not go to school. But since I've joined the Marine Corps, what nobody realizes is all are always going to school, learning something new. And I'd say about 2000, I think I actually enrolled in Maryland in 2011 while I was stationed in Okinawa. And I took a couple classes there. And I'd say I took a break again. And in 2015 or so hit, and I had 2014 hit, I guess. I moved into the intelligence community back then. And once I got there, I realized that, there was a lot of really, really smart people and mentors of mine that I gravitated towards. And something they always taught me was there's, constantly learning, or else you're just being stagnant is actually falling backwards. And, a lot of conversations, a lot of mentorship that was involved with that, a lot of convincing me because I was already hard headed in what I thought was being set in my ways. But everything from asking a person you look up to what book they're currently reading. If they're not reading a book, then they're not a leader to you. And I didn't quite understand that concept, that if they're not trying to challenge themselves, then you shouldn't be trying to follow in their footsteps. And certain pictures and pieces to the puzzle like that, it finally got me moving along, and I realized I need to do something, or I'm not going to be able to set that example for everyone else. And they talk about you are the leaders that you emulate, and then everything else. Now I had children on the way. My first son was born in 2014, so I kind of had a whirlwind of life coming around all at the same time, between changing my job into the intelligence community, where everything is constantly moving at a very high pace, to having children, leaders, everything else. It just hit me really hard, really quick. And I realized that I needed to get a degree, and it wasn't something where I could have a challenge that I could just get done with. It wasn't running a PFT. It wasn't taking a test, or it wasn't going to do a corporal's course or something like that, where it was a set time, set class, a set grade, and everything was just done and over with. You passed, you got a cert like everyone wants, and you put it in your training jacket or in your records, and then you're on your way. It was something where it set you apart from the pack. It showed that it wasn't always about the smartest person in the room that got the degree, but the person that was the most committed, that sat down when they didn't feel like it, and that person was the one that companies trusted and got promoted. And so you take all of those mindsets, you put them together, and I finally found a challenge for myself that took 6 years of weekends that weren't spent with friends. And I cannot tell you how many wake up calls at 6 a.m. where the wife wakes up and wonders where I've been, and she comes downstairs and there I am with my like 6 pot of coffee. So it's an experience that I want to take back. I want to probably recommend it when you're a dad, a Marine, training to be an Olympian, doing it while you're on a couple world teams and traveling around the world, and life in general. And volunteering on the side. I don't know if I would recommend that pace. I was taking 4 classes a semester, 3 semesters a year, to finally get it done towards the end. So I was pretty burnt out. So I've taken a break. but hopefully I can go back and get a master's, get my graduate's degree sometime in the future. I think my biggest regret from that was why didn't I do that sooner?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's for me. I probably wouldn't have had to work so hard if I had started or continued the education like in 2011. I sat, took a break, and I just waited. If I would have taken one course at a time and used that tuition assistance or listened to some more mentors in that little transitional phase I had of growing up between being an adolescent to being a young adult, I kind of used that time for my personal use, and I could have put it, geared it towards something else. And now, that sense of urgency is kind of what I involve every activity I have now. So,
yeah. That's great. Our last guest was uh, the DI of the year, Gunny Flores, and he just got his PhD. And so the grind that he had to put himself through, and the sacrifices, right? The relationships, the social life, all of that. But there's some things deeply rewarding, right, at the end of that. And I'm sure you felt it. And obviously you want to continue in this path of continue to grow and educating yourself. So that's exciting. I want to step back a little bit. And before we get into some of the really interesting and exciting parts of your successes and your ongoing successes, I want to talk about adversity in your life. And obviously, we all have adversity, and they just come in different forms. But what were some of the hardest things before the Marine Corps or after the Marine Corps that sort of fueled you, or that almost destroyed you? And what did you have to lean on, and what helped you get through some of those?
Right. Well, before the Marine Corps, I'd probably say what pushed me into the Marine Corps again was just it wasn't like I hadn't tried. It wasn't like I couldn't grasp a lot of the concepts. I just couldn't put the thoughts of what was in my brain on paper enough to be able to reflect, a good enough GPA for what schools had this, metric system that you had to meet. And if you didn't meet that, then you just weren't good enough to be educated, right? If you don't meet this standard right here, then you'll never be good enough to join our cult or our program, or be, even be able to pay us your tuition. You're not worth it. And I kind of started to realize that I didn't get any. People talk about I've had multiple offers from D1 universities to join them, get out of the Marine Corps and work for their regional training center, their Olympic team, or their university over here, and take coaching positions. And it's kind of funny where now I'm going somewhere else. I had never applied for the Naval Academy, but that's because I don't think they even would have accepted the letter to read once they saw it. But it's kind of one of those things where we're from the Northeast and everything around there, and like Temple, for instance, right? So like Temple University's big recruit, like they're very open. I didn't even get a pamphlet from Temple. It's almost like I didn't go to high school, right? I didn't get any offers, even with sports in school. I was pretty decent. I was I wrestled for 4 different years. I never made state in the state of Pennsylvania, but the state of Pennsylvania is like Texas football for wrestling, and it's pretty difficult. But friends around me were getting offers of some kind, even partial scholarships, or at least recruiting visits and things like that. Something to enjoy that junior, senior year. How are you going to prosper, right? And so for me, I had to deal with the fact that I wasn't not only accepted, but I wasn't even welcome to feel that experience of what I could or could not have if I worked a little harder or didn't. So right away, the outlook was just like bleak and dismal. So I guess that was why I joined the Marine Corps too, not just to get away from education, but I was just very fed up and frustrated with the fact that, the chance isn't given as, I guess I was a sophomore and junior. I was 14, 15 years old in high school, right? 14, 15, and you're telling them that you need to make all these decisions, or you're not good enough to ever be a part of our university or our program, or, our brotherhood, sisterhood, fraternities, anything like that. That was kind of what set me off on why my friends and family are like, man, you really hated education. And really what it did was, I'm not good enough for you. And I just set out to prove everyone wrong. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't big enough or fast enough, or apparently I wasn't smart enough, but I just couldn't put it on paper enough to get that GPA. But either way, no matter what I did, it just wasn't enough to make the cut. So that's kind of where I think I've really embraced that Marine Corps mentality that they look for, is just, that whole like recruiting scheme of proving someone wrong because they said that you couldn't do it. Um, that kind of filled my void completely. And the thing is I haven't ever let that go on anything and everything. That's definitely been a piece of adversity for me, and it's a chip in my shoulder. It's a grudge that I hold. I wear it on my sleeve all the time, and I don't feel the need to not let every single educator and university that offers me something now that did it before know. You could have had it, but you failed, or you just didn't believe in me. And maybe I could let it go one day, but it's also proven very fruitful, because when I'm tired, when I don't feel like doing something, I know that I'm just going to prove them right if I don't do something right now, to the fullest of my ability. So it's been a driver. That adversity was definitely something huge before the Marine Corps, but I do still use it, and I use it to this day. And that's kind of what has helped me get through a lot of this stuff. I joined the Marine Corps. I was an avionics option. And at the time, like any other 17-year-old who got his parents to sign the contract, I didn't know what option meant in contract. I thought that meant I had the option. I realized that I had the option. Right?
You never have the option.
I didn't understand the whiffum in there. That the whiffum wasn't this guy; it was the other way around. So like I had my heart set on like Pensacola, because I thought that's where I was going. I was going to be close to my grandparents, who I was very close with, in that area, and I left. I got my orders 20, 30 minutes before the bus rides, to spread out from Marine Combat Training over here on Camp Geiger. And my order said 29 Palms. I was like,
Christmas came early.
I know S1 messed this up, because mine said avionics, and avionics are in, I got the one job. I got the one little thing in there where that option goes to 29 Palms, to be a 5900 field, a communication systems tech. And you got the ground side of 28, or the aviation side of 59. And next thing you know, they were like, "No, you're not hopping on this bus. You're hopping on that bus." And I was like, "Wow, okay." So I had to call everybody and let them know, like, don't bring my car to Florida. Don't do that. All the plans changed, right? And it ended up being really good. I met some of actually, I still talk to them to this day. I just talked to someone yesterday on the phone that I met and roomed with and went to school and worked with continuously, because I went to 29 Palms. And the one thing about like 29 Palms and, my next duty station after that was, when you're deserted like that, your brotherhood really comes closer together, unlike places like Pendleton or Lejeune, or places like Baltimore or Virginia Beach, or wherever you are, wherever that metropolitan area is where there's more to do. For me, I've come to find out that it actually creates less bonding. And no matter how you try, you always create friction from trying to do that. And then sooner or later, that friction can cause crumbling. So like for me, 29 Palms was actually great. I had, not one, but multiple cliques of friends and groups of Marines. And we would do things every single weekend, because you were in the middle of nowhere, but you were just a couple hours away from everything. So, for us, that was an absolute best experience I probably could have had. It was the best thing for me, but it just changed everything up from my plan on what I thought I was going to be doing. I had, my cousin he's a Cobra pilot for the Marine Corps. He joined, I went to his TBS graduation like 2 days after boot camp. So like we were back to back within the same year. He was very successful, and he was him being a close cousin was the reason why I wanted to go, in that field and kind of follow that route. So there was things like that where everything kept changing. I had to keep adapting. It wasn't what I wanted. I wasn't on the East Coast. I knew I probably wasn't going to keep wrestling then. I joined the Marine Corps. I didn't plan on wrestling. To this point, I still had no idea there was even sports in the military. Like now I know about the history of, some of the greatest Olympians who were, in our armed forces. But at the time, that wasn't something very heavily recruited. It's not something that was thrown up on a poster. It's not something where recruiting trips were given to high schools or universities or colleges. Something that I've tried very hard and have worked, well with, different national governing bodies to change that. But at the time, nothing, no idea. Recruiters had nothing to say. Senior leaders had no idea about it. It was very intramural, and it was kind of club work. And as a junior Marine, I had absolutely no idea. So I went out to 29 Palms, and that's where I went. I think I was 5'3". I had gained some weight. I was like 130, 135 though now. So I was it was getting big, real jacked. And I went out to 29 Palms, and I had nothing to do but hang out with friends. Now I'm in a school for a year. I ended up going through like 3 different schools, A, B, and C, and everything else, right? And so it became my home then. And I just spent a ton of time out there, just sports, the gym. That was the only thing to do if it wasn't the weekend, is the gym and the chow hall. I went from 5'3" and like 130 to I was 5'9", 5'10", and about 205, 207.
Oh, wow.
In under a year. And I used up my 604 form for that gear exchange real quick. And I needed to. Nothing fit me at all. I don't even have my boot camp stuff, and just nothing fit me. And it's just the way it just, I don't know, something hit. But for me, it was kind of like I hit that last, that growth spurt that most kids hit in their junior year or so. I hit it a year after high school. I hit it when I was 18, turning 19, instead of 17, turning 18. So that also had a huge factor on my development. Just growing up in high school, like we talked about that adversity, is I tried, I saw specialists and everything. What's wrong with me? Why am I only, 100 pounds, but I'm a senior in high school when I'm eating anything I see all the time? My body just wasn't ready for it. My body wasn't ready for it. My mind wasn't ready for it. And as soon as that happened, things started clicking. But I got with a team out there. It's club retired sergeants major and whatnot get together, and they still like throwing hands or knife hands. Who knows what's going on over there, But Fight 29 was the team. It was a club team. They used like a dojo from one of the units over there. I was getting ready to leave. I had also requested Cherry Point again, trying to get over here to the East Coast. And that best friend I just talked to yesterday, he said, "Hey, I want to go to Okie. I heard Okie's awesome." Right. So I'm like, cool. So I requested one, he requested the other. His name was right before mine. He got Cherry Point, and they played the little trick game where they thought they said Okie and Cherry Point thing. And then they put me, and they said my next name, and they said Okinawa, Mass 2, MCAS for Tama, everything. I was like, haha, like click it again. You tricked him. Now you're going to trick me. They clicked it, went to the different person behind me, like different name. I was like, what? So once again, like I keep going farther and farther away from where I wanted to do, where I was comfortable with. I think what I wanted was, I wanted that comfort zone. I wanted to find something where it felt good. And every time I went to do that, the Marine Corps was just like, no. And it created an adversity in itself. Like, man, I loved the Marine Corps. You grew into just, I was very young in the Marine Corps still, but you still have that love for what you do is still there, no matter what. It may change and fluctuate with its ebbs and flows throughout a career, but those that are going to re-enlist, those that are going to, want to stay in and make it that career, they kind of have this itching inside to continue forward. At least that's what I've seen in my own career. The others that can get out, they prosper in so many other things, but others that want to stay in, they just have a different itch about them. I really just wanted that. And every time I went to ask, all I asked for was where to go. Like, all right, you already got me. I wanted to go over here. Then I wanted to be a 28, a ground side. And so I could, get with a Victor unit. And then they took that away and they made me a 59. Then I was back on the air side again after I had given that up. And I was already in 29. So then I said, all right, let me get Cherry Point. We're both Lance Corporals. They said no. We were both single. They said no. I guess it's my name or something. Yeah. I don't know what's going on here. And so that was something else, where you look at, it's very easy to flip flop names for, it's a T, we know how it works. But for some reason they refuse to do it for students. And I just had to live with that. So I called home and said, I need to, what should I do? Like, I'm thinking about getting out. Like every time I go somewhere, it's just no. And right before I left, like days before I left, I was told about this wrestling circuit that they have in Okinawa. And how every now and then, like once a year, once every couple of years, the All Marine wrestling team coach comes out there and what are you talking about? Like, what is a wrestling circuit? Like we don't have this in America. And two, who and what, where, how, what is this wrestling team you're speaking of? So no idea. So I got to Oki and I realized they have like one tournament per base per year. So it's like a seven tournament thing per year, and it always ends at Camp Schwab. And Camp Schwab is where the All Marine Wrestling team head coach would come out, and if you won the tournament, he would kind of recruit you, let you file an application and stuff like that. I found that out while I was out there, and I started training again. I didn't buy any shoes. I didn't have any wrestling shoes. I didn't have singlets. I didn't have workout gear for that kind of stuff at all anymore. I had to just buy all new stuff again. Nothing even would have fit me, even if I would have kept it. But I had to buy new stuff anyways, and I started training again. And I looked up the All Marine Wrestling team like online. This is like 2011. So like websites and Marine Corps and stuff like that, it's kind of getting there. But you kind of remember how it used to be. And I looked up the roster. They just had like a roster with a name and like very simple 4 or 5 quick bullets of the people that were, the starters for those positions and their, second string and everything. And I know my guy was number 2 in the country at the time. He just finished second at the World Team Trials in 2010. His name was Staff Sergeant Stephen Forrest. And he was like a 3-time state champion. He wrestled all throughout high school, national, international tournaments, and he was a national team member for Team USA. So he was top 3 in the country. And then I'm a guy who never even made it out of the district tournament for the state of Pennsylvania. Like never even made it to the state tournament, nonetheless placed or won. I never even made it there. I didn't even make it to the big show. So once again, I was like, this isn't even worth my time. These are the next guys that are on TV. I can't do it. And long story short, I finished. I did win. I won all the tournaments out there, and I did win that event. I got the application, and I got a call. I just bought my R34 Skyline. So I was a cool Lance Corporal with a gold card. So anybody listening to the podcast from like 2010 and 11 remembers the gold cards mean that you could do whatever you wanted, right? I had to go on a meritorious board for this thing. Like that's how hard they were to come by. And I had my driver's license. I bought a car, the car they told me not to buy. Mm-hmm. It was a white R34. It was beautiful.
Do you still have it? It's probably worth
no,
like $1 million.
It's so far gone. I don't even. It's even out of my memories. I deleted the photos. It's so bad now, and it's very, very, very unfortunate because it's about to be historic. But
yeah,
I just got this like a couple days before the tournament, and I got the call that hey, why don't you come out to the team? We just got your application approved. Your flight is Friday morning 08. And it was like Wednesday afternoon. And they were like, put your stuff in supply and storage. Let's go. So I left October 6th of 2011 because I landed with the time delay and everything, October 6th, 2011 in Raleigh, and I've never gone back to Okinawa.
Yeah. So, I'm definitely a deep dive into your successes as this begins, right? The story of, okay, this is like the next chapter of your journey. But if you kind of look back at those times of adversity, Marine Corps sending you far away from everywhere you want to go. And by the way, the secret to getting the monitor to send you where you want, right? You ask for what you want in your third choice. You put it in the bottom of the list, they'll send you there. Yeah, not number one. But just if you can pick out 1 or 2 things, you obviously had a chip on your shoulder, you used it to your advantage. We try to shape this podcast to bring out insights into mental fitness, emotional fitness, social fitness, and spiritual fitness. How did you process some of that, right? Like if you kind of peel back the layers, what was it? Just all in your own internal kind of processing?
No. There's a lot of no. There's been a lot. I mean, and that's something I've dealt with up to this day. But even back then, it was very severe where I was going through all that and you have a chip on your shoulder. But even with that, you still have this level of self-doubt, right? Mm-hmm. I may be angry, but is this anger geared the right way? Am I really worth what I'm telling myself I'm worth? You have to deal with that constantly when you're continuously striving for something. And for me, the further the Marine Corps took me away, I realized I went from here to 29. I got close to a lot of brothers and sisters. I went to Okie. Okie's, everyone knows how Okie is, but that was where my strongest bonds of Marines to this day have been, minus the All Marine Wrestling team set aside, just because we had nowhere else to go. We had no one else to turn to except for like once a year when ticket prices were $2,200 for Christmas block leave, right? Other than that, you weren't leaving. You had to figure it out and you had to bond yourselves together. So, for us, it was my immediate supervisors, my staff sergeant, I remember specifically, but my sergeants and my corporals as a Lance corporal, they kind of mentored me and guided me into, yes, you can do this. We'll fight for you. We believe this is a great opportunity for you to go. You need to believe in yourself enough to not waste this opportunity on something else. Like you might have a gift that we don't know about, but we want to give you that opportunity. So for me, that adversity was met and matched, with a greater force by just my immediate leadership that I had. I was pretty fortunate. They were open. They were open to opportunities. It wasn't about the numbers and filling out a TO or, filling out a different mission set. It was, you have something that the normal Marine that I have here doesn't have, and I can get another one of them, but I can't get another one of you to do something else. So I want to take you and put you and push you into that opportunity, and I'll figure this part out because that's what my billet description says pretty much. So I was very fortunate for that.
Yeah, that's not a common, right? Where
no,
a leadership is willing to take a hit in manpower.
I mean, they took a hit, and they took a hit. I was T80 for a year. I was 6 months, and then another 6-month extension. So they took a hit for a year. But in turn, I had the best opportunity in my life.
So you went from in high school feeling like you didn't belong, you were rejected, to you were accepted and you were believed in, and man, you just soared. What a great transition and great story. But we come to kind of the end of our first segment, and listeners, I hope you are tuning in to the next one, because the details just get a lot more juicy and interesting as we dive more into Staff Sergeant Johnny Stefanowicz's story. You have anything, Steve, to wrap up?
No, just to say, yeah, I've really enjoyed hearing your story so far. And one thing that popped in my mind as you were sharing was that, for Mark and I, we both have teenage kids that are now bridging that gap into adulthood, figuring out college. Am I going to go to college? Am I going to go in the military? What am I going to do? And so I can totally relate with everything you just said, because I have a daughter who is like, I am not going to college. And she joined the Air Force, and she's doing incredible things, and she's just going after it, right? But at the same time, she started to take college classes now, right?
Yeah,
so totally
it's kind of inevitable.
Yeah. So I just really appreciate your story so far. But we're going to take a break now. And but for our listeners, join us in the next segment. As Mark said, we're going to go into a little bit further into Staff Sergeant's journey now as an Olympian. So stick with us and join us in the next segment.
This concludes another episode of the 0 to 100 podcast. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, be strong, be courageous.